the town of Sugar City. The water's receding now pretty good. You can see along this store, a while ago it was clear up to the top of that store and up about halfway up over the schoolhouse. You can see the destruction, the houses moved off their foundations. The water's still running pretty good. This is the evening, about 6 hours after the dam broke.
Okay, so the morning of June 5th, 1976, I've been spraying all morning and came back to Rexburg, filled up for a field up near the Teton Dam, a field of spuds, and I was spraying the field for a farmer up there. And I arrived up there and I flew my load, and as I was pulling up each time, it looked like the Teton Dam spillway was really dumping a lot of water. I mean, when I got there, it was just a little stream, and then as I sprayed that field, I noticed the stream would increase greatly. And so I didn't think much about it until I got back to Rexburg after spraying the whole field and spraying out my load. And Rexburg was a mess. The airport was just a mass of pickup trucks and airplanes going all over the place. I couldn't figure out, it looked like a war zone. And so when I pulled in, the owner of the company, Kelsey, who I was flying for, came running up and said, "Don't even shut down. Get this airplane to Rigby. We got to evacuate Rexburg. We're going to get flooded. The Teton Dam washed out." And then I realized what the heck I'd seen while I was spraying that crop of potatoes was the dam washing out. And I didn't even realize that's what was happening. And so we flew the aircraft up to Rigby and came back, and then we got another one and flew it up there. And we got these little private airplanes he used to spot fields with, and we got them up there. And each time the road from Rigby to Rexburg was just a mess of people evacuating the area and getting to high ground, getting their belongings out of Rexburg and in the path of the dam, Sugar City and Tetonia and all those places. And so on the way back from the last trip, I was worried about my own airplane. I had it parked at the Rexburg airport. It was called the Blue Goose, 1956 172, all worn out, ragged, dadgummed old airplane. And so we were breaking our necks to get back to Rexburg so that I could get my airplane out, and I was just going to take it over to Hamer and go home because the crop dusting was over for the day. And we were down in the borrow pit and honking our horn and going around wreckers and everything else and running barricade lines the police had set up for people coming in and talking our way through checkpoints to get to the airport. And finally, after about breaking our necks to get there, I got my old Blue Goose and flew out of there. The water was still a long way out. It wouldn't have been a danger, but we didn't know because no one knew how fast that water was coming. So I flew over to Hamer, and I went to the house, and we were talking about it. It was on the radio, and everybody knew about it. So everybody in Hamer wanted to go up over it. So I took a load. I took my kids. I took them all up over it because they wanted to see it. And we flew up over the water, and my gosh. I don't know if you can remember it, Rod, but you remember the horses running up to the fence line and the water rushing over them. The poor buggers, they just turned and faced that water and took it, wiped them out. Cattle did the same thing. When they saw they were doomed, they just faced it and went into the water. And we watched cars rolling and trucks rolling. My gosh, it was a destructive mess. So I took the kids back to Hamer, and I thought, oh man, this is a mess. And looking at and listening to it on the radio, you'd hear people in Roberts were lining the ditch banks and the river banks trying to protect the city of Roberts, and the Manan people were worried what it was going to do there. And Rexburg was just a loss. They were just evacuating the equipment and everything they'd get out of town because they knew they couldn't stop it. It was coming right through town. So as it hit Sugar City, another load of Hamerites showed up at the airport. They wanted to go up over, so I took my second trip out there, and this time there were airplanes all over the place. I mean, it was like Grand Central out there wonder we didn't run into each other, because we're all looking down at the ground watching the progress of the flood, and woo, we're going airplane by, and woo, we're going helicopter. And then I realized that in a disaster situation, the regulations say there's no flying out over that area. The airspace is closed, and it's automatically closed because you know it's a disaster. You got no excuse, but we stuck it out anyway. Got to Hamer and took another load of farmers that had property over there, and they wanted to go out and look at it, so I flew them out over the place. And when I got back to Hamer, I realized, holy cow, I ought to go get my Super 8 camera and take some pictures. So on about the 4th or 5th trip, I can't remember for sure, I took my camera out there. I think Bro was with me that time, and he, yeah, I think I can hear his voice in the background on the Super 8 film if you listen really carefully, if I remember right. But anyway, we went out over it and took some pictures of it. This time it was just north of Rexburg, and I was wishing now, looking back, that I'd have gone back and got some more film if I had it, or borrowed some from someone that had some, and gone over there and got the pictures of the flood coming through Rexburg. But then the TV news had so many pictures of it that it probably wouldn't have been worth it. My little shaky shots from the air, my little blue goose, probably would not hold up with those professionals that were out there flying with big old cameras. Anyway, after the flood was all over and everything was settled and the dust was settled and the government settled with everybody that lost property. And if I would have just not made it back to Rexburg Airport for any reason at all, and let my old blue goose wash down the river, rolled up in a ball down there somewhere around the Manan Butte as it came to rest on a sagebrush or something, the government would have bought me a brand new Cessna right out of the factory, just giving it to me to replace it. Because everybody that lost their airplanes that day didn't get them off the airport because the floodwaters came ripping through, took hangars, airplanes, everything out. They got all brand new airplanes. So there I was, sitting on the Rexburg Airport with that old rusty blue goose, and everybody else had a brand new airplane. And for 3 months they were lamenting the loss of their airplane. And I thought I was the lucky one. And then 3 months later, they're all going to Cessna to pick up their new airplane. So that's probably the dumbest thing I've done in a long time, is make it back to Rexburg and rescue my airplane. Anyway, that's my Teton Dam Day story.